We start with the big right lie. Josh Marshall's founder and editor of Talking Points Memo, TPM, and Bob Shrum is a Democratic strategist. Well, Shrummy's come back with the bad news. I don't think even he was ready for this. And I'm not saying, Shrum, lunch, what am I saying? What a confusion I'm in here. Here's some Iowa Republicans in a focus group with Frank Luntz on Friday News, or actually Fox News Monday night, last night. Let's listen.
I believe that Barack Obama's religious beliefs do govern his foreign policy.
And what are his religious beliefs?
I believe that he is a Muslim.
You do?
No. Yes.
How many of you believe that here?
Yes.
How many believe?
Wow. You believe he's a Muslim?
Yes.
And you think that's having an impact on what he says and does?
Fundamentally, yes.
Absolutely.
Jack?
Yes, I do also.
Now, do you understand the implications of what you're saying here, what the media is going to say about this group and about Iowa caucus voters in the future? You realize what you're opening up here?
I think his religious belief is liberalism. Right. He believes in his political policies more than any principled religion.
I think he's Muslim sympathetic. I don't know that he's a practicing Muslim.
His religious belief is liberalism, and you know that's the most intolerant religion of all. There's no room for wiggle in there.
I do think it's quite possible he is Muslim, even though he says he is Christian. But I think that this type of rhetoric, he's waffling on both sides.
Well, I don't know what we make of that, but the nationwide Pew poll in August found, that's the best last poll we've got, they are not off base among Republican conservatives. Look at it, 31% of Republicans think President Obama is Muslim. 39% say they don't know his religion, which is a cute way out. That means 7 out of 10 Republicans wouldn't say the president is what he says he is, what he practices. Is the problem getting worse? I want to go to Bob Shrum on this because we all grew up with that phrase, the big lie. If you keep saying something over and over and over again, somebody's going to believe it. And apparently the conservatives and the Republican Party, in fact, across the board, Republicans are buying this number. He's a Muslim.
Oh, sure. And look, Fox News reports, but they also propagate. And these folks live in an unparalleled universe of untruth and intolerance. They look at Barack Obama. He looks different than, as he once said, than any other president we've ever had. His father was born in Indonesia. And I think this whole issue of his religion becomes a surrogate for a lot of other feelings people have about the notion that somehow or other their country is being taken away from them. Because the country is changing profoundly. There's a demographic reality out there. And what Richard Hofstadter used to call the paranoid style in American politics flourishes in times of big change and big challenge. So I think that's what we're seeing, but it's being consciously exploited.
That's his stepfather was born in Indonesia. His actual birth father was Kenyan. Let me go. What's going on here, Josh? You know, I thought this would go away, but despite going to prayer breakfast, despite protestations, perhaps, what does it take for him to demonstrate to some people, or is it just their fighting words? Do they say it just to show they don't like him?
I think there actually is an element of that some of these people really don't probably believe that, but it's what you say if you don't like Barack Obama. Yeah. But I do think, you know, the Muslim thing, the birther thing, these are all go together, that he's not one of us.
How about Palin saying he hangs around with terrorists?
Again, it's all of a piece.
Hangs around with them.
It's all of a piece. It's all. Well,
let's take a look at a little look here, Bob. You can't see. You can see it up there too on the screen. Here's Limbaugh and Beck last August after that Pew poll came out. Let's listen to their jamboree of misthought here. Let's watch.
Imam Hussein Obama. I want to be fair too. He probably is the best anti-American president the country's ever had. Obama says he's a Christian, but where's the evidence? Well, he went to Reverend Wright's church. Yeah, but he says he didn't hear anything that was said in there. And by the way, Reverend Wright's church is a weird brand of Christianity. Reverend Wright's church, black theology, is what comes out of that pulpit.
The easy thing is to say, I think he's a Muslim. I really don't. I think he is a Christian that Christians don't recognize.
Some think he's a Muslim. I'm just saying there might be reasons why some people think this. Shock poll, 24% think Obama Muslim. White House, Obama obviously Christian. I'm going to get into this in a minute, but what's obvious?
President Obama is not a Muslim. I'm taking his word that he's a Christian. But here's where it falls apart for many Americans. It's a Christianity that most Americans just don't recognize.
Well, Bob, there's where it falls apart. In other words, I mean, I've never seen a religious test so brilliantly applied to a guy to screw him politically. Well, this, I don't know what he is. I don't know what he claims to be. He's into some kind of black theology. It's not really Christianity. And maybe it's black Muslim, really. It looks a little different, but that's really what it is. Nation of Islam. All this clever, I don't know, maybe is. And then, of course, Imam, Obama, that kind of language, Bob. I never heard anything like this done before.
Listen, it's fear, smear.
I guess you'd have to go back to Father Coughlin and Franklin Delano Roosevelt and that horrible anti-Semitic stuff went on back in the 30s. I don't think it's recent in American history, this kind of talk.
No, it's what Hofstadter talked about as the paranoid style, and it's fear, smear, and innuendo that would have made somebody else, Joe McCarthy, proud. But look, the black church, and there are so many layers of bigotry in this. The black Christian church in America has been a powerful shaping influence on our history, was the point of the lance of the civil rights movement. It's where Martin Luther King came from. Now, I'd say that to Rush Limbaugh, I'd say that to Glenn Beck, and I'd discover they don't like him either. There's something else, by the way, that ought to be said here, and Colin Powell said it on Meet the Press eloquently the week before the election. Barack Obama's not a Muslim. He's been a Christian all his life. But what if he was a Muslim? I mean, are we going to start applying these kinds of religious tests in American public life? That's what John Kennedy fought against.
Okay, and it also is, I want to go back to Josh, it is part of this crazed way of looking at the situation in Egypt. It's all conflation. Just like if somebody hits us from somewhere, we go hit Iraq. Keep it confused. Keep it confused. Islams are out to get us. 1 billion of these people around the world, they're not all out to get us. If you start getting into that world, you have done exactly what Al-Qaeda, that small group, wants us to get. Get totally focused on them representing 1 billion people. Then we're really finished.
Yeah, that would be very ill-advised. I mean, I think the key is here is that, you know, when people say, in 2011, when people say someone's a Muslim, it's not what it would have meant 20 years ago. It means he's one of those people that got us on 9/11, that might be blowing up a plane. It's all coded language, and again, I think it's really of a piece with the birther stuff, about which there's just as little evidence.
Let's take a look at Frank Luntz here, asking that same focus group of Iowa Republican voters how Obama should handle the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. Now, this makes your point, how they respond. He asks them how, a particularly good question, by the way. It's a good question. How do we deal with the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt? Let's listen.
How many of you think that he should state clearly, knowing the implications in Egypt, there should be no outreach to the Muslim Brotherhood? Who agrees with that idea?
Absolutely.
All of you. Then what is the solution? What do you do?
I would just like to see him be proud of America, represent America, our history.
You guys agree with that?
I just want him to be proud of who we are and have the ability to point out all the positives this country's represented.
What do we have to be sorry about? He runs around apologizing all the time. What do we do wrong? We prospered as a nation. We pay for things and we give relief to other countries.
I don't know what to say. These people will not read the newspaper. They're not. These are tricky situations. We're trying to figure out what to do with those 1 million people in the streets yesterday. Do we talk to some of them? Do we not talk to them? Do we let them all vote? Do we push the Egyptians to have a real democratic election, or something that perhaps, I don't know what. It's very tricky. And these people just say, well, act American and don't apologize. What's that got to do with this? And the question, by the way, was, what do we do?
Yeah, good point. You know, you see in those faces, there's a lot of hate and there's a lot of fear, and there's there's
not a lot of newspaper reading in that crowd. I'm sorry, they're not wrestling with the issue.
There's also a lot of political leaders that are stoking that, because keeping your supporters not just opposing the head of the other party, the President of the United States, but fearing him, and fearing him in a very deep way, is powerful politically. And so there's responsibility that goes all the way up the chain, across the country.
You know, I think everybody likes to play innocent. We are not innocent. The United States has to make deals with different leaders around the world. Sometimes we make it for oil, Bob. Sometimes we do it to help Israel, our friend over there. We make all kinds of deals, and sometimes we make it with people who maybe shouldn't be head of those countries. Some of those leaders in that region are parasitical. We know that. They were put in there from outside. They weren't there. They weren't elected by the people. For us to say it's somehow all we have to do is love America and we can solve all our problems is not accurate. We've got to think through these deals we've made and figure out the right ones we're proud of and are essential to our interests. And then try to work our way through the tricky stuff. Yeah. Your thoughts, Bob, last time.
I had two problems with what we just heard. One was the question. We don't get to decide whether Egypt is going to deal with the Muslim Brotherhood. The government's actually talked with them for years and years and years at the same time that they've suppressed them. Secondly, we don't run Egypt. And the president has actually done a very good job here, I think, of walking a very fine line, trying to achieve change, but at the same time not go down into chaos. And when you listen to these people, you know why the Republican Party is going to fall off the far right edge when it nominates a presidential candidate in 2012.